The last keystroke echoed in the quiet of my apartment. It was well past midnight, and the blue glow of my laptop screen was the only light left on in the room. I was exhausted, my eyes burning from a long day of debugging lines of code that just wouldn't behave. My phone was face down on the desk, silent for hours. That's why the sound made me jump a sharp digital chirp that cut through the silence. I sighed, leaning back in my chair. Probably just a spam text, or maybe a notification from some app I forgot to silence. I almost didn't bother to check it. My bed was calling my name, but habit made me reach for it, flipping it over. The screen was blindingly bright in the dark room. My breath caught in my throat. The message wasn't from my mom or my boss or a random number. The name on the screen was my own. It was a text from my own phone number. Cold feeling, completely separate from the late-night chill, started to creep up my spine. This had to be a mistake. A glitch in the network. Maybe a new prank app my friends were using. My thumb trembled slightly as I tapped to open the message. The words were simple, but they felt heavy, loaded with a meaning I couldn't grasp. Don't take your usual way home tonight. I stared at it. I read it 3-4 times. What did that even mean? My usual way home was, well, the only way home. I let out a nervous laugh, a short, sharp sound that didn't convince even me. Okay, very funny, I said to the empty room. Who is this? Ah! But a part of me was already unsettled. This wasn't a normal wrong number. This was different. I deleted the message, trying to delete the weird feeling that came with it. I told myself it was nothing. I went back to my laptop, shutting it down for the night, trying to push the strange warning out of my mind. 5 minutes later, as I was pulling on my jacket, the phone chirped again. The same sharp, insistent sound. My heart immediately started hammering against my ribs. I already knew with a terrifying certainty what I was going to see. I slowly picked up the phone again. There it was. Another message from my number. I opened it. I'm serious. They're watching me right now. The phone felt like a block of ice in my hand. I couldn't stop staring at those words on the screen. They are watching you right now. A jolt of pure fear shot through me. My eyes darted around my apartment. The curtains were open. It was just dark glass reflecting the room back at me. Was someone out there? The parking lot, on the street? This wasn't a joke anymore. This was something else. Something very wrong. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. I had to answer. I had to know who this was. My fingers fumbled across the screen, typing out a message. Who is this? This isn't funny. I hit send. The message whooshed away. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Just silence. I held my breath, my whole body tense, waiting. Then, instantly, a reply appeared. It was so fast. Impossibly fast. Like the sender was just waiting for me to answer, their finger poised over the button. The new message was longer. I read it, and my blood ran cold. It's not a joke. It's you. From 5 minutes in your future. Do not take the turn onto 5th Avenue. You'll see them, and they will see you. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Me. From the future, that was insane. Completely impossible. This had to be some kind of elaborate, sick trick. But how? How could anyone know my route home? I always drove down 5th Avenue. It was the fastest way. A million questions exploded in my head, but one feeling was stronger than all of them. A deep, primal fear. The message was too specific, too strange. I looked out the window again. The street was empty and quiet. Normal, but it didn't feel normal anymore. It felt like a trap. Part of me, the logical part that debugged code for a living, screamed that this was crazy. I couldn't listen to a mysterious text. I couldn't believe I was texting myself from the future. That was science fiction. No, I decided right then. I was going to prove this was a hoax. I was going to go my usual way. I was going to drive down Fifth Avenue and see that there was nothing there. Nothing at all. I grabbed my keys, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my chest. I was scared, but I was also stubborn. I had to see for myself. I pushed the fear down, took a deep breath, and walked out the door into the night. The engine of my car sounded far too loud in the silent night. It was the only sound, a low rumble that seemed to make the emptiness around me even deeper. My hands were clenched tight on the steering wheel, my knuckles white. I kept checking the rearview mirror, over and over again, expecting to see something, headlights, a figure, anything, but there was only darkness behind me. The message burned in my mind. You'll see them, and they will see you. Who were they? This was Fifth Avenue. It was just a normal street. I tried to laugh it off, but the sound got stuck in my dry throat. This was stupid. I was being stupid. I was almost at the turn. My usual turn. My signal light clicked, the sound abnormally loud in the quiet car. It felt like I was announcing where I was to the entire night. I slowly eased my foot off the gas, peering into the darkness ahead, and then I saw them. Up ahead, near the corner where the old oak tree grew, were 3 figures. They were just standing there, under the dim yellow glow of a streetlight, all wearing long dark coats. They were too tall, too thin. They stood perfectly still, their backs to me, not moving an inch. It was wrong. Everything about them was wrong. A cold dread, colder than the air outside, washed over me. This wasn't a prank. This was real. I slowed the car to a crawl, my heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted to escape. I couldn't look away. I held my breath, my eyes fixed on them. As I watched, one of the figures began to turn. It didn't turn its body. Its head just started to rotate slowly, mechanically, towards me. But it was still facing away. It was turning its head a full 180 degrees, its body remaining completely still. I was frozen, staring at this impossible thing, this violation of everything I knew. And then my phone, sitting in the passenger seat, lit up and chimed. The noise made me jump. I didn't want to look, had to look. With trembling fingers, I picked it up. Another message from my own number. The words filled me with a terror I didn't know was possible. You weren't supposed to look. No W D K N O W. A scream caught in my throat, coming out as a strangled gasp. My foot slammed down on the accelerator. The tires screeched against the asphalt, a sound that ripped through the silent night. I didn't think. I just drove. My eyes were glued to the rearview mirror, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. What did I just see? That thing turning its head? It was impossible. It had to be a trick of the light, my mind playing games because of those stupid texts. But the fear was real. It was pumping through my veins like ice. I glanced back in the mirror. The figures weren't running. They weren't even moving like people. They were gliding, sliding over the pavement without taking a step, their long dark coats flowing around them like black water. They were keeping pace with my car, not getting closer, not falling behind, staying there, a constant terrifying presence in my mirror. My phone buzzed again on the seat beside me. I flinched so hard the car swerved. I couldn't look. I couldn't take my eyes off the road, off the mirror. It buzzed again, insistent. With a shaking hand, I snatched it up, my eyes flicking between the dark road and the screen. Another message from me. They can't be touched. They can't be hurt. They can only be feared. And they are hungry for yours. Tears of pure panic welled in my eyes. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be real. I pushed the gas pedal harder, the engine roaring. I had to get home. Home was safe. Home had locks on the doors and walls to hide behind. I didn't look in the mirror again. I just drove, swerving through the empty streets, not stopping at signs or lights. Finally, my street, my house. I skidded into the driveway, practically falling out of the car. I fumbled with my keys, dropping them twice, my head constantly snapping up to look into the darkness. Nothing. The street was empty. I got the door open, stumbled inside, and slammed it shut, locking it, then the deadbolt. I leaned against the door, gulping in air, my whole body trembling. I was safe. I was inside. The familiar sight of my hallway, my shoes by the door, a bill on the table, it all felt so normal, started to calm the raging storm of fear inside me. It was just a bad dream, horrible waking nightmare. And then my phone, still clutched in my sweaty hand, lit up one more time. I didn't want to see it. I had to see it. It was a picture message from my number. I opened it. It was a photo of my back. It was taken from behind, right here in this hallway, just moments ago. It was me, standing at this very door, my head bowed, my shoulders slumped with exhaustion and fear. The photo was dark, but it was unmistakably me, and it was taken from inside my own house. A sound escaped my lips, a tiny broken whimper that was pure terror. The phone slipped from my numb fingers and clattered onto the wooden floor. The screen stayed lit, that horrible picture glaring up at me. My own back in my own house. Taken seconds ago, my body turned cold, then hot, then cold again. I spun around, my back pressing hard against the front door, my eyes wildly scanning the dark hallway, the living room archway, the stairs leading up to the deeper darkness of the second floor. Nothing moved. The house was utterly silent. Too silent. The usual hum of the refrigerator was gone. The faint tick of the clock on the wall had stopped. There was only the ragged, too loud sound of my own breathing. "Hello?" I whispered, the word cracking in the dry air. No answer, but I felt it. A pressure, a presence. Something was in here with me. Something that had taken a picture of me from behind. My eyes darted toward the stairs, and then I heard it. A soft creak from the floorboards upstairs. Then another, a slow, heavy step. Someone was walking around up there. The footsteps were familiar, too familiar. They had the same rhythm, the same slight drag of the heel that my own footsteps had. My blood turned to ice water in my veins. This couldn't be real. This was my house, my safe place. The footsteps moved from the bedroom into the hallway upstairs. They were coming toward the top of the stairs. I stood frozen, trapped against the door, unable to move, unable to breathe. I just stared up into the darkness at the top of the staircase, waiting. A shadow moved. A figure emerged from the gloom and stood at the top of the stairs, looking down at me. The light from the street lamp outside filtered through a window, casting a weak glow on its face. It was me. It was my own face, my own hair, my own clothes. But the expression was all wrong. It was blank, empty. Then it smiled. It was a wide, stretching smile that showed too many teeth, a smile that never reached its cold, dead eyes, a smile I had never made in my life. "I'm home," it said. Its voice was my voice, but flat and hollow, like a bad recording. It was the most terrifying sound I had ever heard. I didn't think, I just ran. A scream finally ripped itself from my throat, raw and desperate, as I shoved myself away from the door and stumbled blindly down the hallway. I didn't look back, couldn't. The sound of its footsteps, my footsteps, began descending the stairs. Slow and steady, not running, just walking. It knew it had me trapped. I burst into the bathroom at the end of the hall, slamming the door shut and fumbling for the lock. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely turn the little knob, but finally, with a solid click, it was locked. I slid down to the cold tile floor, my back against the door, pulling my knees to my chest. I was breathing in huge, ragged gasps, trying to be quiet, but the sound was deafening in the small, dark room. I could still hear it moving out there. Floorboard creaked right outside the door. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying for it to go away. Then my phone, which I had somehow managed to clutch in my panic, lit up. The glow was like a beacon in the dark bathroom. Another message. From me. I didn't want to read it. I had to read it. "They are not from here. They are from a place between places. They feed on what we feel. Fear is their favorite food. It makes them strong. It makes them real." The words scrolled across the screen, a nightmare explained in text messages. I kept reading, my eyes wide with horror. They have no shape of their own. They steal ours. They find a crack in time, a weak spot, and they use our own number to talk to us, to lure us, to make us afraid. The more afraid we become, the more they can take, until there is nothing left of us for them to wear. It was all true. The texts really were from me, or some version of me, trying to warn myself. These things, these monsters, were using time itself as a weapon. They were hunting me by making me afraid of my own life, my own home. A soft knocking started on the bathroom door. It was gentle, almost polite. I flinched so hard I hit my head against the door. "Alex," a voice called out. It was my voice, but it was all wrong. It was trying to sound concerned, caring, but it was just a hollow imitation. "Are you okay in there? You seem upset?" The doorknob began to jiggle, slowly back and forth. The thing on the other side was testing it, seeing if it was locked, seeing how scared I really was. I pressed my hands over my mouth to stop myself from making a sound, from giving it what it wanted. The tears streaming down my face were silent. The only thing I had left was silence. The doorknob stopped jiggling. Silence that followed was somehow worse. It was a heavy, waiting silence. I could feel it out there, just on the other side of the thin wooden door, listening, feeling for me. My phone glowed again in my hand, a lifeline in the terrifying dark. A new message. Almost didn't want to read it, afraid it would be it. The thing outside, mimicking the texts to trick me. But it was from the same number. My future self. "You have to listen to me. You have to be empty. They're like spiders. They feel the vibrations of your fear and the web of time. It is how they find you. It is how they see you. You have to become still. You have to become nothing inside. The words were desperate. How could I become nothing? My heart was hammering against my ribs like a wild animal trying to escape a cage. My breath was coming in short, sharp gasps that I couldn't control. Every nerve in my body was screaming with fear. I was a vibration. I was a dinner bell ringing. The thing outside knew it. I heard a slow scraping sound against the door, like fingernails. My fingernails, dragging down the wood from top to bottom. I squeezed my eyes shut tighter, pressing my hands against my ears, trying to block it out, but I could still feel it. The vibration, the promise of my fear. The phone vibrated again. Another message. Think of static. Think of white noise. Think of the empty space between radio stations. You have to fill your mind with that. Nothing else. No thoughts. No feelings. Just empty. It sounded impossible, but it was the only thing I had left. I had to try. I focused everything I had, every last bit of my will, on the idea of static. I pictured the fuzzy black and white screen of an old TV. I tried to hear the constant rushing hiss of nothingness. I imagined my fear as a bright, loud light, and I tried to turn down the dial, making it dimmer and quieter. I forced my breathing to slow, taking deeper, slower breaths, even though my lungs fought against it. I let my muscles go limp, slumping against the door. I wasn't Alex. I wasn't scared. I was just here, a thing in a room. The scraping on the door stopped. The presence I felt on the other side seemed to hesitate. It was working. I pushed harder, burying every thought, every memory, every feeling under a mountain of imaginary static. It was a blank page. I was a quiet room. I was nothing. The silence from the hallway became deeper, more profound. I didn't hear anything move. I didn't hear it breathe. Just sat there in the dark, being empty, for what felt like an eternity. The door to the bathroom began to open. It didn't burst open. It didn't break. The lock simply turned, slowly, smoothly, and the door swung inward. I didn't move. Got my eyes squeezed shut, my mind screaming. But I forced it to stay focused on the static, on the empty noise, on being nothing. A wave of cold air washed over me, carrying a strange smell like ozone after a lightning strike in something old, like dust from a forgotten room. I could feel it standing there in the doorway, looking down at me. I could feel its hollow gaze. I didn't look. I kept my breathing slow and even, a steady rhythm in the terrifying silence. My heart was still pounding, but I pretended it wasn't my heart. I pretended the fear was just a distant echo, something happening to someone else, far away. It took a step into the room. The floorboard creaked under its weight. My weight. I felt its presence loom over me, blocking what little light came from under the door. I could feel the cold radiating from it, a deep, unnatural chill that made the hairs on my arms stand up. I felt its breath on the top of my head. It was cold, too. Didn't smell like anything. It was just a movement of air. I remained perfectly still, a statue of fear, pretending to be a stone. Inside, I was screaming. Inside, I was dying. But on the outside, I was empty. I was a void. I heard a low, frustrated hiss. It wasn't a human sound. It was the sound of air escaping a tire, a dry, rasping noise that seemed to suck the sound out of the room. The presence shifted. The cold intensity lessened. I dared to open my eyes just a slit, peering through my eyelashes. I saw its shoes. My shoes. They were standing right in front of me, but they were beginning to change. They were becoming less solid, shimmering at the edges like a mirage on a hot road. The thing was losing its form. My form? It was becoming transparent. I could see the faint pattern of the bathroom tiles through its legs. The static was working.
Ow.
My emptiness was starving it. The hissing grew louder, more angry, but also weaker. The figure seemed to waver, to blur, like a picture on a broken TV. It dissolved into a swirling dark mist for a second, a cloud of anger and cold, and then it was gone, simply vanished. The room felt instantly warmer. The pressure was gone. I was alone. I stayed on the floor for a long time, shaking, not daring to move, not daring to believe it. I had done it. I had won. And then my phone, still in my hand, buzzed one last time. A final message from the future. It worked. But that was only one. There are more. They will not stop. You have been marked. The relief I felt evaporated, replaced by a dread deeper and colder than anything I'd ever felt before. It wasn't over. It only just begun. The first light of dawn crept through the small bathroom window, painting a pale, weak stripe across the floor. I had spent the rest of the night on the cold tiles, too terrified to move, jumping at every tiny sound the old house made. The message echoed in my head. You have been marked. The words were a brand burned into my mind. But as the sun rose, a strange sense of calm, maybe just exhaustion, settled over me. It was morning. The world was supposed to make sense in the morning. I slowly, carefully unlocked the bathroom door and peered out. The hallway was empty. My house looked exactly as it always did. The shoes by the door, the bill on the table, it was all normal. It felt like a dream, a horrible fading nightmare. I almost convinced myself that's what it was. I got ready for work on autopilot, my movements slow and mechanical. Normal routine felt like a shield. I drank coffee. I found my keys. I walked out the door and to my car. The bright sunlight felt good on my face. It was going to be okay. It had to be. But on the drive to work, I started to notice little things. Small things that were just off. I waved to Mrs. Gable, my neighbor, who was always out watering her roses at this time. She didn't wave back. She just stared at me, her expression completely blank, as if she had never seen me before in her life. A cold trickle of fear went down my spine, but I told myself she was just tired. I got to the office and pushed through the glass doors. Sarah, the receptionist, always greeted me with a bright "Good morning, Alex." Today she looked up, smiled her perfect smile, and said, "Good morning, Mark." I stopped dead in my tracks. "Mark, my name is Alex." I forced a laugh. "It's Alex. Sarah." Her smile didn't falter, of course. "Sorry, Alex." "Have a good one, Mark." She said it again. She called me Mark while saying my name was Alex. It was like a glitch in reality. I walked to my desk, my heart starting to beat too fast again. My cubicle looked the same. But the framed photo of me and my dad fishing it was still there, but it was different. In the photo, we were both wearing blue jackets. I remember that clearly. But in the frame on my desk, the jackets were red. A small detail, a stupid detail, but it was wrong. I sat down, my hands trembling. I looked around the office. People were working, typing, talking on phones. Everything looked normal, but nothing felt normal. It was like I was looking at the world through a dirty window. The colors were slightly wrong. The sounds were slightly muffled. My history, my life, the things I knew to be true, they were being edited, erased, and rewritten around me. They were still here. They weren't attacking me. They were changing everything else. They were making it so that soon there would be no place for me at all. It wasn't me anymore. I was becoming a ghost in my own life. The office noise faded into a dull, meaningless hum. I couldn't stop staring at the photo on my desk. The red jackets. It was a small, stupid detail, but it was a crack in the foundation of my entire world. It was proof. The messages were right. They were still here, and they weren't coming at me with claws and teeth anymore. They were doing something worse, something much more final. They were gently, patiently editing me out of existence. I felt a dizzying wave of nausea. This wasn't a battle I could win by hiding in a bathroom. How do you fight something that rewrites reality itself? My phone felt heavy in my pocket. The last message was a death sentence. You have been marked. It meant this would never stop. They would keep coming from different angles, in different ways, till the version of me that remembered the blue jackets was completely gone, erased, replaced by whatever they wanted to put in my place. A deep, cold hopelessness settled in my bones. This was it. This was how it ended. Not with a scream, but with a slow, quiet forgetting. And then a thought cut through the despair. A desperate, crazy thought from the last message. The only way to break the cycle is to warn yourself in the past. But to do that, you have to create the time rift yourself. It was a paradox. A loop. The only reason I knew any of this was because a version of me from the future had texted me. And that version of me only knew to text. Because I was about to text myself. Right now, the realization hit me like a physical blow. I hadn't received those messages by accident, and I had sent them. This was always how it happened. The weight of it was crushing. There was no escape. No way out. The only choice I had was to become the thing that started the nightmare, to ensure the loop continued, to give my past self the only fighting chance I ever had. A chance to be as terrified as I was right now. A chance to maybe, just maybe, survive a little longer. Tears streamed down my face, hot and silent, dripping onto the desk. I didn't wipe them away. There was no point. With hands that felt like they belonged to someone else, I pulled my phone from my pocket. The screen was blurry through my tears. I opened a new message. My fingers hovered over the keypad, shaking. I took a ragged, broken breath. This was it. This was the moment I doomed myself. I typed in the recipient's number, my own number. I stared at the digits, each one a step deeper into the nightmare. I thought of myself, just a few hours ago, sitting at my desk, tired and oblivious. I was about to shatter that man's entire world. I was about to introduce him to a terror he couldn't possibly understand. I typed out the words. It's the same words that had started it all. It's the same words that had filled me with a dread I would never, ever escape. I looked at them on the screen. Don't take your usual way home tonight. My thumb hovered over the send button. I cried for the man I was, and for the man I was about to become. I pressed it. The message whooshed away into the past. I dropped the phone on the desk and put my head in my hands. Completely broken. It was done. The loop was closed. And then, from the phone on the desk, a single familiar chirp sounded. A new notification. It had begun.